if we just assess Trump's first, let's say, well, what is it, 90 days or so, is he on the right track?
Yes. Yeah, I can say that without equivocation. What he's doing is he's attacking the most powerful people in the world on multiple fronts at the same time. It's a very dangerous strategy. Trump has already made it abundantly clear he doesn't want to negotiate with the EU. He doesn't consider them a government. Trump has been very clear. Europe is our enemy. 99% of what is said about the Trump administration is a lie. And why? Because everything that Trump is trying to do and his team is trying to do gores the oxen of the existing financial power structure. 94% tariff on this guy and 46 on this guy. And then we're going to negotiate about everything. And notice this morning that the only two people that are trying to put retaliatory tariffs on are China, the European Union, and Canada. I always ask the simple question. Why did they want us to know what it is that they want us to know right now?
Hi everybody, my name is Paul Buitink and welcome to Reinvent Money, a podcast about money and power. Today back on the show is Tom Luongo of the Gold, Goats and Guns newsletter. Welcome back, Tom.
Thank you, Paul. Good morning. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing fine. It's of course a little bit overwhelmed with everything that's going on. It's difficult to keep track, but
you and me both.
You just told me you have 6 podcasts today or tomorrow, right? Like a lot of things lined up.
Yeah, and I've got the newsletter to start writing somewhere in the middle of all this. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun over the course of the next couple of days. But that's life in the big city and life in the fast lane. And well, if you can't stand the heat, you know what to do, right? So it's a fascinating time to be alive.
Exactly, yeah. For you as a podcaster and newsletter writer, I mean, the current times are the most interesting they can get, right?
Mm-hmm. It really is. I mean, you can't ask for a better like milieu in which to operate, right? Especially if you've got something interesting to say, or at least you think you have something interesting to say. And I always do. So I at least always try to have something interesting to say. So let's start saying it. So.
Yeah, for sure. Because 4 months ago you were last on, and Trump had just won, and I got a lot of positive response on that podcast because you say things differently. You say different things also. It was quite refreshing, both for me and my audience, especially when it comes to, for example, the European oligarchy. Quite a few new concepts for me. Also, you were sharing with me. Let's just dive in what's going on right now in markets, in geopolitics.
Sure.
If we just assess Trump's first, let's say, well, what is it, 90 days or so, is he on the right track?
Yes. Yeah, I can say that without equivocation. I can even say that after yesterday's insanity. We're doing this the day after like tariff-geddon or whatever you want to call it. Paul, behind me is a very curated, very important, a set of assets that have been important in my life. And I was thinking about this morning as everybody is talking about the latest narrative. Yesterday, during while everything was blowing up, everybody was like, "Is China going to dump their treasuries in this response to Trump?" And blah 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 blah. I was on with Sputnik, and I did a thing with them, and that was the producer there that I work with when I'm on with them. He's a well-intentioned kid. He's not he's not driving a narrative or anything. He's been told by his editor what to talk about. And he asked me about those things. And I'm like, Antoine, this is not what this is about at all. This is about something fundamentally different. And I shifted away from China and towards where I think the problem is, which is, of course, in the European Union. And I'm not, and if I thought it was China in this respect, I would say so. But when I got up yesterday morning, it became obvious that we were dealing with the night before. People were starting to make noise about the basis trade blowing up, which is basically, a spread trade between treasury futures and spot treasury prices, and then picking up those 2 or 3 basis point nickels in front of a freight train after you've levered up anywhere from 20 to 60 times. It's an insane trade. People do it all the time. And, now everyone is running around thinking that they're experts in the basis trade, myself included. 2 or 3 days ago, I didn't really, think about any of this. And I don't care one way or the other about the banking regulations or the milieu that keeps allowing this trade to be rebuilt. But there was a great article on Zero Hedge yesterday, and I will give them massive credit for putting all this together and describing the the size and the scope of the problem that was, staring us in the face, and that there were major hedge funds out there, Citadel, Millennium, and a few others, that kept putting like these massive trades on. And I kept saying to myself, yeah, but I think you're missing the real point. About halfway through the article, I'm reading it and I'm grokking most of it. And I'm like, I think you're missing the point here, which is that this keeps happening over and over and over again. This happened in September of 2019 when SOFR blew out and forced the Fed into the market. It happened when the Treasury market went bidless in March of 2020. The basis trade blew up. The Treasury market went bidless. We got CARES Act. We got forced Powell back to the zero bound and QE and blah, blah, and, dogs and cats living together and, the Stay Puft Marshall Mellow Man, for Christ's sake. And they're doing it again. So I've watched these arcane financial trades. The same people are making the same trades over and over and over again. They were blown up twice, maybe 2, 3, 4 times previously, and yet they keep going for a bailout or keep asking for, they keep putting the same trade on again. Why?
Yeah.
Are they stupid?
Probably not.
No. It's intentional. Where are they getting the money to do this? Who's giving them that money? One of the things that has really popped into my head since you and I last spoke is that I did a great podcast with my friend Chris Sullivan over at Hyperion Decimus, and he kept wanting to talk about, the guts of the market. And one of the things that, we try and do, myself and my community and the people that I podcast with and I chat with, is not to ask why markets move, but to ask how markets could move. And then once you understand the parameters in which how markets could move and the decision space of the people in the markets, then you can understand who could have made the choice to do what they did, where they would do it, and why they would do it. That becomes a much more interesting heuristic, a much more interesting process. So let's come back to the gaming table. I'm sitting here watching this play out yesterday, and all I'm thinking to myself is someone at the table is sitting there screaming, I'm not a very important player. I'm not going for the win this turn. I can't possibly win this turn. I don't have enough assets. I'm not trying to do that. And then they do that. And then they talk the table and they sandbag everybody. And then they go, well, I'm going to do this, and this, and this turn, and I'm going to win. And I've played games that are very, very good at modeling that type of behavior. It's far more complicated than poker. Right, than the poker table, which a lot of people understand. Even a good high-stakes game of Texas Hold'em. Similar, but a lot more variables to juggle. I've been that guy that talked 6 people out of their pants 100 times. Don't believe me? Ask my wife. She's been there and watched me do it. And she's like, I'm like, I know, I can't help it. So what I mean by this is that I've got experience, not a skill set, but an experience that leads me down these. I can smell this. Donald Trump can smell it too. He's very good at it. So he does it in different ways. He does it by making business deals. I did do it by hanging out and playing stupid card games. And so I can see what the method to the madness is, which is what he was trying to do was smoke out who was going to be his adversary here and who wasn't. And all the clues were left for you at the table by the election of Mark Carney in Canada and the way he's acted since then on the campaign trail, the way the European Union has been acting about all of this, and then to a lesser extent how China's been acting. Now, Scott Bessent is out there talking about China. That's fine. That may even be his focus. But we know that from Trump's original tariff schedule that he tariffed the EU at 20% and the UK at 10%. There's your wedge issue. There's your wedge play. Then he's got Giorgia Meloni coming into the White House to negotiate on behalf of not the EU, but Italy. Trump has already made it abundantly clear he doesn't want to negotiate with the EU. He doesn't consider them a government. He considers the 28 sovereign states that make up the EU the sovereign governments that he'll do bilateral trade agreements with. Trump has been very clear. Europe is our enemy. I've been saying it for years. I don't know whether the Trump administration is listening to me or not. I don't really give a shit. What I care about is knowing that he gets it. So,
But
when I
is he
watch,
not making too many enemies at the same time then? Because clearly the world perceives China currently as the biggest enemy of Trump based on everything he's been doing so far. You at the
Mhm.
same time say Europe and the financial industry that's based there is the prime enemy of Trump. But there's a real risk, and you already see some movements in that matter that China and the European Union are going to become stronger allies in order to work against the US, right? Is there another big risk
Is
that
that
the US
possible?
ends up being alone?
It's possible, but I don't think so. Okay, and I don't believe that that's the case. He can. Here's the thing. So I was watching the market action yesterday morning, and as I was reading that Zero Hedge article, and I looked up at the market action, and I don't know, I don't know if you remember. I on a daily basis I watch the bond spreads between U.S. and Germany, U.S. and the U.K., Germany and Italy, Japan. I watch the euro yen cross. I watch the euro pound cross. I watch the euro. I watch the CNY. I watch the ruble. I watch all of this stuff. I have a watch list on investing.com that would like make your head spin. And I saw a whole bunch of stuff yesterday. And I've grafted these like I just started by watching the euro. Okay. And gold. Okay. And then it's just over time, the more you learn, the more you're like, okay, I need to watch this. Nope.
Right.
I've got a hypothesis here. I need to watch this market to see if I'm right about this hypothesis. I got to go get the data. I'm still, at the end of the day, I might wave my hands a lot, but it's in the data. It's in the cross-market analysis, right? Yeah. So what I'm saying here is the following. Yesterday, the UK and the US long into the bond market was selling off hard. The euro was up, the yen was up slightly, and the German 10-year Bund didn't move at all. Middle of this crisis, and what you've always seen from Lagarde is whatever happens in the US Treasury market, she tries to keep the the German 10-year Bund either pegged below a certain level, which in this case is around 2.65%, or she lets it float with the U.S. market because she doesn't want bond spreads to get too far out of control. Now, bond spreads, once Trump announced the tariffs, the spread between U.S. and German debt dropped dramatically to the lowest I've seen since Powell started raising rates, so like 1.3% at one point, or 1.35%, somewhere around there. Usually, Lagarde likes to keep it between 1.6 and 1.9. 160, 190 basis points to Germany's advantage. Yesterday, we saw it blow back out from around 1.5, from 150 to 177 when I pulled it right at the New York Open, on stock market open yesterday. And I'm like, oh, that's what they're doing. What are they doing? Now, pair that with knowing the way I've broken down the Treasury International Capital Market data since Powell started tightening, and the European Union and its subsidiaries, okay, including the Bank of England and its subsidiaries, including Canada. When you drop all of those together, not in Switzerland, I carved Switzerland out on this, you get that they have bought over $1.1 trillion net of U.S. Treasuries over 3 years. China and Japan both sold a little bit once, when Powell first started to tighten in the summer of 2021. Before he started raising rates, he was tightening through the reverse repo facility and draining the world of offshore dollars. And the reverse repo facility went from $450 billion to $2.7 trillion or whatever it was by Jackson Hole that year. And that's what started me on the path that I'm on today. It's why you and I are even speaking, because if I hadn't gone down this path, I probably would be out of this business by now. So what my point is that who has a massive stock of treasuries? Is it China? They got 750 billion. Is it the European Union plus the Bank of England, who has 3.4 trillion? And This is all long dated U.S. government bonds in central bank reserves. That's not counting the banking system. It's not counting the hedge funds. It's not counting the family offices that are owned by the families of Europe. It's not none of that. Just the treasuries, long dated, no short dated here. It's in the TIC data. It's broken down. What's short term? What's long term? They're all buying 5s, 10s, 7s, and 30s. maybe some 20s, but there aren't a whole lot of 20s out there. So who cares? The 20 issuance is so low, it doesn't matter. Like at the end of the day, if we find out in June that they dumped $200 to $300 billion on the market, because we won't know in April's TIC report until June.
But I read that the Japanese sold yesterday, right? Apparently was the Japanese responsible for...
So what we heard yesterday morning, right, was this. China. A couple of people were saying basis trade, by the way. Oh, basis trade. Now that the basis trade narrative has begun to make it into the mainstream, because people were like, no, it wasn't China. And Trump turned the tables on everybody at 1 o'clock yesterday. And there was massive buying of both U.S. stocks and U.S. treasuries, by the way. Mm-hmm. Now everybody's running a basis trade argument this morning, and they're trying to blame the Japanese. Got news for you. Ain't the Japanese. Europe was dumping treasuries on the market yesterday. They were dumping treasuries, buying dollars, selling dollars, buying euros in order to buy German debt. That's what they were doing. And they were doing so to maintain the credit spreads.
Yeah.
And they were doing so.
But in the end, it doesn't really matter who did it. The result is that yields went up. And at first, Trump could say, look, because of what I'm doing, long end yields go down. But now they are going through the roof again. So he lost that sort of selling point now. Like, he needs to deliver, right? He needs either lower inflation. He needs industry return to America.
He's got gasoline futures down to $1.90. The inflation in the United States, the CPI, is completely correlated to the 4 month rate of change of the monthly close of the price of gasoline is completely correlated in the directional sense with the 4 months change in the CPI. Period. It wasn't always that way, but it's been that way since we entered commodity cost push inflation in around 2022. It's been that way, or 2021 post COVID. It's been that way. And that correlation still holds. Again, I have the data. I present the data to my patrons and sometimes to the world on Twitter. Every once in a while, when somebody says something dumb on Twitter, I'm like, oh, by the way, no.
Right. Yeah.
That's wrong. This is what's important. So the price of gasoline, with the price of oil coming down, is going to drop inflation. It's going to give Powell all the room he needs to cut 25 basis points and alleviate the stress on the markets and alleviate everybody's worry that the Fed's not here to, liquefy markets. Note also, the short end, the T-bill market did not move. Did you see any stress in the T-bill market? No. If you didn't see any stress in the domestic T-bill market based on SOFR, then all of this is noise. And what Trump did was, I used to do this all the time. I know I can craft you a metaphor that you will not understand. I'm like, I just dropped a homemade tank on the table and I'm going to watch everybody explode and try and figure out what my move was. What does that mean? And I'm attacking that target? What does that mean? It could mean this. It could be, and everybody like freaks out. And then you just wait to see who plays what card. And you're smoking out that you're trying to bait out their counters. You're trying to bait out them overcommitting because they're weak against this particular thing. And finding that weakness is, and that's exactly what Trump did yesterday. Yeah. Trump, the original tariff schedule that he put out there was a classic Donald Trump Zopa move. Outside of the zone of potential agreement to say 94% tariff on this guy and 46 on this guy. And then we're going to negotiate about everything. And notice this morning that the only two people that are trying to put retaliatory tariffs on are China, the European Union, and Canada. And the European Union didn't even get it nearly as badly as China did. Again, I think Scott Bessent is correct. China they know exactly how to make China move this way. Chinese can't save face, can't lose face here. The European Union is the interesting one because it's Ursula von der Leyen that is out there today trying to front strength that she doesn't have. Okay, but the Chinese are going to do what they're going to do, and that's normal. And
A lot of
then
people
they'll
say
negotiate
that the market forced Trump's hand. In the end, he had to backtrack, but you don't think that's the case. It was
No.
all intended from the start.
Mhm.
He wanted to do like a big shockwave and then get people back to the negotiating table and then change the tariffs again. I mean,
Did he not? Did he
it
not get
sounds
exactly
obvious.
that result?
Yeah, exactly. It sounds
I
obvious.
mean,
The only thing is like,
if he didn't, like, if you know, and again, maybe, and again, were they worried about the long end of the bond market a little bit? Sure, of course. But the reality is that in this particular environment, you have the refunding crisis that we're staring at, the $9 trillion that Janet Yellen threw on the balance sheet, issuing nothing but ones and twos. I screamed about that for the whole time Yellen was doing it. I'm like, oh,
the next 3 years will be tough, right? Refinancing wise.
but what's the worst that happens here? Rates are a lot lower than they were before. They've sold, and going into this, the Europeans were probably selling 10s and 30s and buying ones and twos and trying to create the recession narrative by creating an inversion in the yield curve. They did this. They've done it before. I've watched them literally do this multiple times. Okay. And then they sell the narrative in the financial press that you own. That's what you do. Like, that's their MO. It's always their MO. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. They set the market up in a particular way, or they set the geopolitical game board in a particular way. Then they craft a narrative, and then they sell the narrative. And then they try to make newly minted experts on X, whatever X is, that week. And because everybody stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night, and it's just dumb. I watch it all the time, and I'm like, I'm not interested in that anymore. I always ask the question, not why something happened or what. I always ask the simple question: why did they want us to know what it is that they want us to know right now?
Sure.
Why do they want us to know about the basis trade now? Why do they want us to know about this now? Because then they can craft a narrative and do the sleight of hand, while the real fight happens underneath the table. And you've got to go in and do the cross-market analysis to see what's going on. Because when I see narrative, counter-narrative, narrative in the press, and something else happening in the financial markets, I'm like, well, that's clearly not what's going on here. So they're lying here in order to do something else there. We see it all the time, Paul. Like, once you see it, you can't. Once you see what's happening, you then look to the narrative that they're trying to sell, and then you go look to see if there's any confirmatory data. And then when you see the opposite data, you're like, oh, well, clearly that's not what they're doing. Like, I don't know. It's just funny. So
what surprises me then as an observer, like why is there so much disunity within Trump's team then? Because I see Musk picking up a fight with Navarro. I see Musk also openly saying he doesn't like tariffs. He wants to have a zero tariff zone with the European Union. I'm pretty sure Musk was also getting a little bit anxious seeing the stock market and the value of his company. So do you what's the influence Musk still has on Trump?
I don't think that Elon Musk is. Elon Musk is learning at the feet of Donald Trump as well. He's a carnival barker. He always has been. He's very good at it.
His days are numbers, you think?
No, that's not what I mean. I mean that Musk is very good at helping Trump sell a narrative. He's learned how to feint right in order to go left. He's very good at it. He did it with Twitter. He did it with Tesla all the time. I mean, truly, I tried at one point to short Tesla and make some money on it. And
me too. Guilty.
and I mean, I wrote articles about how Teslas are ugly. They're just ugly Maseratis. Like, you know what I mean? And I don't understand it, but he's pulled it off. And Elon has used the media very well to his advantage over the time. He's not what's the word I'm looking for? He's not unsophisticated when it comes to this stuff. Moreover, he's also very impulsive because he's a spurgy guy with ADHD, and he says a lot of things, and not all of those things are true and correct. Now we stop for a second and we say, I'm not a big fan of Peter Navarro either. So, and Navarro is a guy who's not really close to Trump's team. If he was, he would be in the cabinet, or he would be at Commerce with Howard Lutnick. He's not. He's a guy who used to be in Trump's inner circle. He is no longer. And there's a lot of guys like that out there. And there's a lot of guys out there like that commenting on what Trump is doing. Steve Bannon is one of them.
What was about to mention his name, yeah. But he still has influence, right? I mean, he has a big following.
Does he have influence in the Trump administration? No, he has influence in conservative circles. So.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have any influence in the Trump administration. I don't think. I think he was excommunicated a long time ago, and I think Trump realized that Bannon. I don't know. I mean, I don't know where Bannon is right now. I don't even watch Bannon anymore, to be honest with you. I haven't watched 5 minutes of a Steve Bannon podcast in, I don't know. I mean, not even a clip in like 3 years, maybe 4 years. Like I'm like, I know where he's going to go. He's going to blame China for everything. Like, okay, fine. Like,
I think you and I both agree that he only has 1.5 years to deliver, of course, until the midterm elections in 26. So he has to be fast. That's why he also pushes through. But so we can argue, or perhaps we can conclude that on the inflation front, he can deliver soon because of falling oil prices. The border in the south is more secure now than it was for a long time. So I guess he delivers there too. Russia, there's no sign of peace or ceasefire yet. Putin does whatever the hell he wants to do. Trump is getting a little bit nervous there. Do you think he's going to make is he going to have any success there this year, you think?
Yeah. Okay. So let's understand how Trump is actually operating. And again, I didn't want to give him this credit. I don't want to sit here and sound like a Trump shill. I've just actually really been impressed because I've been very unimpressed with Donald Trump in the past. Like term one, I'm like, I tried to be impressed by the guy, and then like, really? And then, even when he was in the wilderness for 4 years, I was very unimpressed with what he was putting out and the way he was messaging on his return to power. I think nearly getting killed changed him. It changed his message, and changed the way he's going about this stuff. What I see now is, President Fafo. Like, I'm just at that point with him. I think it's very, very obvious. He's like, you know what? That's it. I'm done. I'm doing exactly what I need to do. Now, what he's doing is he's attacking the most powerful people in the world on multiple fronts at the same time. It's a very dangerous strategy. To quote the great Londo Mollari from Babylon 5, only an idiot fights a war on 2 fronts, and only the heir to the kingdom of idiots fights a war on 12 fronts. All right. But in many ways, that's what Trump is doing. But what he's doing is he's playing a game of round robin to keep his opponent off balance. So we're going to deal with tariffs this week. Last week, it was Yemen. The week before that, it was Russia. Now it was the border. Then it was this. And what he's doing is he's manipulating. He's keeping the media. He understands the mechanism by which they control the narrative, which is on Sunday night, they put their heads together and they write up a bunch of talking points and they put them out on Emily's list. That's the Democrats' mechanism by which to coordinate, and by Democrats, I mean Davos, Europe, yada, yada. They coordinate through Emily's list what their talking points are. And then you see them parroted all on Monday, all day long. And then on Tuesday. And then Trump blows them up on Tuesday. And then they've got to shift Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and they don't know what to do. And then they get through the end of the week. Trump shuts down for 24 hours, plays a round of golf, waits for them to come up with whatever their talking points are going to be on Monday. Then we lather, rinse, repeat. And he keeps doing this over and over and over again. And I'm like, yeah, they're really good at this. So he knows exactly where their weakness is. He's very good at it. And he's very good at smoking out their weakness. And the European Union's weakness is, is they need to export to the United States. They need the constant flow of dollars coming into Europe to finance all of their Eurodollar, their Eurodollarness. They have a lot of obligations, and they want to continue to maintain control over the pricing of offshore dollars, because that is the key to keeping the United States from becoming independent in a truly independent sense. Okay, we can have independent military and foreign policy. We can have independent, even domestic policy. But if we don't control the value of our dollar as it flows around the world, then we don't actually have control over any of those things that we think we have control over. Like, this has been an argument that's been going on for that I became hip to, thanks to Jeff Snyder. Actually, I'll give credit where credit is due. A decade ago. Now, Jeff has not updated his map, maybe he has recently, but as of 2021, 2022, he hadn't updated his map, that SOFR was now the law of the land, and SOFR was taking the Eurodollar ability to coordinate monetary policy away from London and Brussels, Frankfurt and Amsterdam, and move it back to New York. And that's what's happened. And yesterday's price action, where they were selling, all they could really do is sell the long bond and try and induce a panic, while the short end of the market was showing no real stress at all. I mean, yeah, there was stress in the swap spreads and other areas of the market. The SOFR 3-year swap spread was a mess yesterday, sure, but nothing's burning down this morning. So what this amounts to is somebody fired a bazooka into our markets, and we absorbed it.
Yeah, but it puzzles me still. Like, is the US still interested in being or having the world reserve currency, or are they fine if over the next few years or so the dollar becomes less important and will just be one of the several currencies being used worldwide? And if that's the case, then they shouldn't mind too much that the Europeans are dumping the treasuries, the Japanese are. I mean, right?
Yeah, they won't care because
Or
we
the
want
base,
to pay that.
or
We
the
want
base
to pay down
rate
that debt
blowing
anyway.
up. Let those hedge funds suffer the losses, right? I mean, they at the end, if they
That's
seek a
what I
smaller,
think.
right?
Yeah.
Just let
No,
it burn.
I think you're right. I think you're on it. Like, I've been saying for a while now, Jerome Powell sat there at a Humphrey Hawkins testimony and asked about the global reserve currency. He said, I think there's room in the world for more than one reserve currency.
Right.
I'll never forget a Fed chairman saying this on the floor of the Senate. You can't ignore stuff like that, right? I don't see any panic on Powell's part. I see a lot of people attempting to paint that there's panic at the FOMC. A lot of unnamed sources, a lot of people close to the Federal Reserve think that there's some turmoil here. I hear all these rumors. I don't believe any of that stuff anymore. That is pure agitprop put out by people whose oxen are being gored and who are about to lose their ass. Okay? And we have to stop dealing with these rumors. 90%, we have come to the conclusion, 99% of what is said about the Trump administration is a lie. And why? Because everything that Trump is trying to do and his team is trying to do gores the oxen of the existing financial power structure. And the key to understanding whether or not Wall Street is on board with it or not is to listen to Jamie Dimon. And Jamie Dimon, I still haven't had a chance yet. I've been so busy that he gave an interview with Maria Bartiromo yesterday, or someone. Yeah, I think it was Maria. The Caitlin Long pointed me. She said, "Have you watched this yet? It confirms everything you've been saying." I'm like, "No, I haven't, but I'd really like to. Can you get me a link, Caitlin? Let's do a podcast." Like, this is literally how I came back to her. And I'm like, Dimon is clearly on board with what's going on in every way. Now, he doesn't agree with everything that's happening, and he has to couch it in he has to play some political games. But at the end of the day, Dimon represents American banking, the real American banking interest, the New York Fed. He's on board with all of this. And he's been on board with it for 4 years. So that means you have guys like him assisting Besant and Lutnick and Trump and everybody else craft a plan and craft a battle plan. This is a financial war. There's going to be casualties, and there's going to be feints, and there's going to be big good moves. And and at the end of the day, in a war, you don't have to win every battle. You have to win most of them. So I think that the U.S. wants the dollar to survive, doesn't necessarily care if the dollar is the world's reserve currency or not, but it can still be the unit of account for global trade, which no one really has a problem with. And especially if we get our fiscal house in order and we get our monetary house in order, why wouldn't people want to use it? And if they don't, they don't, and that's fine.
Yeah. And do you expect the Fed then to scoop up some of the treasuries that are going to be sold over the next few months? If some of the former allies of the US are trying to retaliate by dumping the treasury, you think the Fed will step in and initiate QE again?
No, I do not. Yesterday's 10-year treasury auction told you everything you needed to know.
It was popular.
Yeah, it was a stellar auction in Zero Hedge's words. Meaning, so you hit the bid on our treasuries and you force the yields up to 4 4.4 on the 10-year, and everybody went, "Ooh, look, U.S. 10-years are on sale." Let's see what happens the next time the Germans issue. Let's see what the next German 10-year bond auction looks like, and let's see who's buying those. Because I'll tell you right now, there's only one player, and their initials are ECB.
Yeah. Now, you and I agree that the European Union is not sustainable at all. We also addressed it in our last conversation. What I don't understand, though, from some of the actions of Trump, I get what he's doing, but sometimes I feel like they're making some stupid mistakes, making it also easy for the media and for Wall Street to pick on him. Like, for example, imposing tariffs on an island that has only penguins. Like, it became a meme, of course. Everyone talked about it, but he could have avoided those stupid mistakes.
Did anybody look to see who actually owns those islands?
I didn't
Most
check
likely
that.
they're owned by the United Kingdom, and they're just British properties, and he just tariffed all. And so what do? They turn around and they go, "Oh, he did this, and that's really dumb." Like, look, I don't care what the Reddit crowd thinks. I mean, I really don't. Like, serious people looked at that and went, "Obviously, that's a British territory, so like it's getting a tariff. Who cares? It's irrelevant. Like, let's stop playing games, and let's stop. If you want to play games, you want to play games. Like, Trump is not even reacting to that, and that's exactly the right way of handling that. You don't react to stupid stuff like that. And at the end of the day, when they make a move like that, when they say something dumb like that, it is an opportunity for someone like me, or you, or anyone else to go, "Oh, by the way, why was that island tariffed?" "Well, because Trump's an idiot." No, it's because he put a tariff on the UK, and it's a UK property. And so by definition, so now ask yourself why serious people in Washington, London, Brussels, and everywhere else decided to spend millions of dollars on a media campaign to make Trump look like an idiot for tariffing an island that only has penguins on it. When you do that, maybe you'll stop acting like a jackass, and we can actually have a serious conversation. And if not, that's fine. Go back to your macrame and continue to be, your macrame and your Subaru and continue to hate Trump. I don't care. Like, you're not going to matter because you're less than 20%, because the people who are doing that are less than 15% of the population in the United States. The most consequential thing that's happened is that Wisconsin passed voter ID. So you can take Wisconsin off the map for the Democrats. It's no longer purple. In the next election, Wisconsin will vote red. They get 3 or 4 more states like that, and Trump will win a durable advantage like you wouldn't believe. What he's planning for, Paul, and I'm telling you this right now, what we didn't realize back in the last time we spoke, is that he is moving to end the income tax in the United States. He's going to run on it for the midterm elections. And they know it's coming because he's targeting the IRS. He's finding out how much of this fraud and how much of the money is going out to pay for illegals to vote against all of this. It's the amount of fraud that he's beginning to drip out, and it's like the ghost of Andrew Breitbart has come back and taken over the Trump administration. Every day, every week, he puts out another one, and he gives more red meat to his social media army to go out and do the thing. And his approval ratings are as high as they've ever been. In a time like this, for a president like him, as controversial as him, to have a 51% overall approval rating in the United States is nothing less than stunning. So,
And what do you think of people
let them squawk? I don't care.
Yeah. I had Catherine Olsen-Fitz on the show last time, and she and others like Gerald Salent are very critical of Trump's policies, because basically they say it doesn't really matter who runs the show, it's criminal anyway. And Catherine also talks about the black budgets, the missing trillions, and that's how do you look at that? Did you follow her? What do you think of those?
I don't want to say anything bad. It's a tired narrative. Catherine's been peddling that narrative for 15 years, 20 years. Dude, my beard was black when she started talking about this. I'm like, I have to wonder about these things. And I believe I'll assume the best of intentions here. A lot of people have been inculcated in the idea that tariffs are bad. A lot of people believe that the Hawley-Smoot Tariff Act created the Great Depression. I think you should have Martin Armstrong on to explain why that is not the case. Because Martin's been banging his shoe on the table like Khrushchev since he was in prison, saying that that's not what happened. was
I would
capital
love to have
flow coming
Martin
out of
on one
Europe, and
day.
the sovereign debt crisis in Europe that created the Roaring Twenties, and then the Depression, and the tariff had nothing to do with it. Like, anti-tariff policy is a very I'm now going to revert to type. Ready? Anti-tariff economic policy is a very British idea, and it's a very British idea because the British like controlling countries through currency arbitrage. They were the first ones in history to really figure out how to do it. Okay? The Dutch created the central bank, the Brits perfected it and created an empire and created a naval-based empire, colonial empire on it. And other countries have since tried to do the same thing, and they're very good at it. And they still control through City of London, something like 30% of the world's forex. They have a serious problem on their hands, which is what happens when you digitize forex, either through Ripple or pick any one of your forex, your digitized forex platforms, right? Like crypto forex. Like once you get to the point where you can exchange the Thai baht for the Chilean peso for 0.05%. What does City of London have? Because right now that's where they make most of their money, and shipping insurance, which has been blown up. So, and because in the long run, the sanctions, like the second order effect of all of the Magnitsky Act sanctions, and again, the Magnitsky Act, Bill Browder, all that stuff traces right back to freaking MI6. Bill Browder's an MI6 asset. And if you don't know what I'm talking about now, that's a really interesting conversation you need to have. There's a lot there. Take a week. Understand the Bill Browder story. Once you understand the Bill Browder story, you'll understand Martin Armstrong. You'll understand why Putin's in charge in Russia. You'll understand all of this stuff, and you'll understand why the same people went after Donald Trump in 2016 with Russiagate. It's all tied to the same thing, which is keeping control over the financial fortunes of the United States in London. That is over, and London is in many ways trying to signal a white flag, or at least the people around London are signaling a white flag. But they won't give up. And they've got the European Union wanting to erect a different type of tariff barrier through regulation and quality assurance and all these other soft tariff stuff, all the stuff that Trump talked about. And if you look at what Trump said yesterday in his statement about, quote unquote, putting the 90-day pause on the tariffs, he made it abundantly clear what's on the negotiating table. It's not just the tariff rate.
No, sure, it's much more than that. I mean, and that's why I sympathize with Trump, especially with regards to China. I mean, European Union. I'm European, so I may be a bit biased there, but I get it that the way China is subsidizing their own industries, the way they make it so difficult for foreign companies to invest in Chinese companies, how they manipulate the currency. I understand why Trump wants to do something about it, but don't you fear that, for example, China could, which they already announced, that they will stop shipping rare earth minerals to the US, or some of the very essential goods that the US also needs to thrive? I mean, is that not a huge risk for Trump that could also backfire?
It could, but I'll be honest with you, like the rare earth story isn't nearly as. It's a big story that people like to make a big deal out of. We have plenty of them in the United States. They're not actually rare. As a chemist, as a metals chemist, I'm like, they're not rare. They're just the F block. Individually, they're rare, but we don't care because their chemistry is almost all identical across the entire F block. And what I mean by, of course, that's the F orbital block of just putting my chemistry bona fides on the table here, folks. I look at the periodic table, I'm like S block, P block, D block, S block. Yeah, okay. So that's the way I see the periodic table, and they're not rare. They come down into two groups, heavies and lights, be it whether they're odd or even in terms of their atomic number, and they're everywhere. And the hard part is the separation process. So looking for the early stage of this is just looking for really, economically advantageous deposits that you can go get them. By the way, the Japanese have a couple of these as well. And I note that that Ishiba, the new prime minister of Japan, is, who is charting a different path for Japan than Shinzo Abe. But is not is not an antipode to Shinzo Abe when it comes to the United States, right? He represents a more liberal wing of the of a different wing of the Liberal Democratic Party, because there's only one party in Japan. There's the Liberal Democrats and there's two wings of it. But that's not to say that they are hostile to the United States. They are not in any way. So Ishiba's already ready to negotiate with Trump. You know damn well that they've been developing the massive offshore rare earth deposit they found about 7 or 8 years ago. That's been in development. We have plenty here in the United States, and Trump has done everything imaginable to start opening up the process of streamlining, new mines here in the U.S. And it's happening, and the Democrats are gonna scream, bitch, whine, and moan about it. He just there's an order that apparently he's getting ready to put out saying, I am done with the Chevron deference. Like, all of the regulations that were put in place by all the agencies relative to the Chevron deference are over. We are to not enforce them whatsoever. It's basically the Kash Patel, or not Kash Patel, the Vivek Ramaswamy position on Chevron, which is that when the Supreme Court adjudicated that Chevron was wrong, that meant that those 18,000 plus cases that were adjudicated under Chevron don't have to be litigated individually to be overturned. They are now null and void. And that's the next part of this. The next phase is like everything else, is look at what he's doing. Like, here's a block, building block, building block, building block, building block, building of the strategy. And it's like, he does that. China's going to, do what they're going to do. There are other sources. They may be more expensive. That's what it is. They'll play the game, and then we'll develop our own ability, because it's not like it's hard to pull them out of the ground. Like, we know how to friggin' move dump trucks around, and we have guys who know how to. We still have a few guys in the United States who know how to use bucket loaders and drive dump trucks. I mean, I know, I've done this shit. Yeah. I worked in construction for a summer like this. Driving a dump truck. It's not a hard skill. It was also really boring, and it was in the era before podcasts, so I couldn't even listen to, it was really boring. You just sat there grinding along for 8 hours on a shift while you're building a landfill. It was terrible. It was a horrible job.
That's true.
But,
yeah.
But it is what it is. We know how to do it.
How long would it take
we have the separations technology because the Chinese stole it from us. So sorry.
And how long would it take, realistically, to set up a refining industry for these types of metals and minerals in the US? Is it 2-3 years? Or?
Yeah, not long, and not 10 or 12. Under the old EPA rules, it'd be 10 to 12.
Yeah,
Trump will get that down to 18 months.
Right.
Just wait till we hear all the permitting problems that the diesel refineries and the oil refineries that are in process, that are hung up in permitting. Just wait till we hear I think that's over the horizon. We're going to hear about 5 refineries in the United States opening up over the course of the next 18 months. And I'll be everybody how did that happen so fast? Because they were stuck in permitting hell in circuit court for years over Chevron and the EPA. And now we're not going to have that problem anymore. Once that starts, and that's what I mean. And he's not wrong when he says, once we do all that, everybody's going to beat a path to our door to invest here for 2 reasons. One, we still have the most advantageous corporate tax structure of any country in the world, with the capacity to take that capital in. And 2, even though they've done terrible violence to it, we still have one of the best rule of law systems in the world. And we can clean up the courts with getting rid of the corrupt judges. They will go away, right? And we can overturn bad case law with the proper with a proper Supreme Court. We still have problems on the Supreme Court, mind you, but you can see what's happening here. This is a turning of the corner, not a flipping the switch. And this is a big battleship. It's going to be turned around slowly, and it's going to take some time. So,
and how likely do you think it is that Trump will successfully complete his whole agenda? And how likely is the other chance that he's not going to make it in time, and he's going to lose the House, and eventually a Democrat will be installed next in 3 years?
And if that happens, then I'm moving to El Salvador. And they certainly ain't moving to Canada. Like, what am I going to tell you? Like, I think that, their options are very limited at this point. Our enemies' options are very limited. The Europeans have nothing but nuclear financial war or actual nuclear war. I think a false flag operation over Ukraine or Iran is very, very, still very likely, which would force Trump into a derailment. I'm not going to lie. We're doing the SWOT analysis. Right? We're doing strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. So we're looking at threats. I think that's the big one. I think the big threat is, I think they shot a bazooka across the bow saying, we'll blow up the basis trade and we'll blow up your banks. I'm like, and we're like sitting there going, feeling froggy, take that leap. I've got the Fed back here with the standing repo facilities and ready to cut a quarter point. And like at the end of the day, the Fed could just cut a quarter or even a half. They don't need to go back to the zero bound here, Paul. Just cut a quarter or a half. Just tell the markets you're there. But
it's a big risk then that Trump maybe takes the bait. For example, that the neocons they put up a false flag operation in order for Trump to attack Iran, and he takes the bait. That could be a potential risk.
It's a huge risk. It is a huge risk. And that's why I'm glad that a sober person like Tulsi Gabbard is his DNI.
Yeah, for sure. She's one of the best, I think.
I think just because of her demeanor, not even necessarily because of her understanding of the nuances of the conflicts, but because her demeanor and her natural tendency is to not overreact emotionally. She's a very calm, sober presence, and she's on the foreign policy front, a perfect antipode to Donald Trump.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that kind of feminine energy in that room is absolutely the right counterbalance.
Yeah.
I don't want a lot of it. And if I want feminine like influence in the room, I want someone like Gabbard, warrior woman, then I want Ursula von der Leyen, vampiric harpy. Right?
Yeah, you're not a fan of
I fucking hate von der Leyen. She was. The more I think about Ursula von der Leyen, the more I watch her in action, the more I realize that she's vicious, she's ruthless, she's evil, and she's not stupid. When she came to power, the big narrative around her was that she was incompetent, and that she was an incompetent woman promoted because of Klaus Schwab and the WEF, and so she could be a perfect puppet. I'm telling you now, I don't see that at all.
No, the way she's consolidating power shows to me that she's actually quite smart and thinks ahead. Of course, I don't think it's sustainable because I think people are fed up with it at some point. But she sure is not stupid.
No, she's not.
Well, thanks, Tom. I know you have so many other interviews to conduct. I just love picking your brain for a bit. Sure. I think we've talked for already 50 minutes, so maybe we can wrap up and. So like we already said, if Trump is not going to succeed, then you will be gone, right? You will just leave the U.S.
I think everybody will be gone, or the country will break up, or something will happen. And I'm hoping that I'm trying to. My wife and I are organizing a move from Florida to Tennessee, and I'm hoping that if this country breaks up, the Florida Tennessee wind up in the same country. You know what I mean? If that happens, the globalists
is it a
win.
Big risk? I mean, for me,
I don't know that it's a big risk. I think after Trump winning, I honestly, the way I read the political system in the United States right now, I just don't see it. What I see more likely is that they try this summer. They try a big summer of violence, and Gavin Newsom, virtue signals that he's going to pull California out, and then Trump's going to send like the National Guard in, arrest him, and send him to Guantanamo. Like that's what I think is going to happen. And then they can scream bloody, and then the British press will scream bloody murder that he's an authoritarian, and he's creamsicle Mussolini and blah 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 blah. And I'll be like, then everybody will be like, no, Gavin Newsom's a traitor. Shut up. That's it. We're done. He's a traitor, and then no one is going to feel bad about it, and the people in California are going to rejoice.
So you think it's more likely that the European Union breaks up than the US is, right?
I think Trump is setting up, and that's a different conversation for a different day. But like Putin is setting up Trump rump Ukraine, right? Where you have a landlocked rump Ukraine full of Ukrainian inconsolable Ukrainian Russophobic people, which is fine. These people that do not want to be ruled by Russians. Fine, don't be ruled by Russia.
Which I get.
Right, which I get completely. I get it. Like I'm not. I don't blame them. I'm not. No blame, no shame here, man. I get it. But all the Russian-speaking people, all the way from Odessa up to all the way through the northern part of Donetsk and towards Kharkov, like they don't want to be ruled by Ukrainians either. Like so, it's by that group of Ukrainians. So rump Ukraine. I think he's setting up rump Europe. Like I think Trump is targeting all the countries along the northern Mediterranean ocean border, other than France. He's singling out France because France is the one actually making all the moves. But you're watching him schmooze Maloney. He's moving assets out of theater and out of Poland and Germany and into Greece. He pretty much blessed Erdogan staying in power in Turkey and taking over Syria to cockblock Netanyahu in Israel, in Syria. And Netanyahu was not happy about this. I don't know if you watched that press conference, but Trump announced that he was okay with Erdogan taking Syria and that he had opened up talks with Iran. And he did it publicly. And while Netanyahu was sitting there having to squirm and eat it, like anybody who didn't think that was a struggle session against Netanyahu, you have Israeli derangement syndrome. You have IDS. You have Zionist derangement syndrome. Like you've got it all wrong. That was clearly what was on the table. And so when you start to really think that all the way through, and then you've got the coming together of Hungary, Slovakia, Serbia, and the others coming together as a quote unquote defensive bloc inside the EU. Like now they're splitting off. And so now all of a sudden, you add the Balkans to that, and the only coast left that the European Union actually controls is the French Riviera. And if the French Riviera was capable of being a port, an industrial and commercial port, it would be. It would have been already. It's not. It is great for what it is. And Italy is actually where all the ports are, and Spain is where all the because the Brits still control Gibraltar. Spain, Italy, Hungary, Slovakia, and Portugal all voted against the last. Was a big pie in the face for von der Leyen that they voted against the latest round of funding for Ukraine. It wasn't just Hungary by himself. It wasn't just Viktor Orban by himself. Giorgia Meloni joined in, and she brought the Portuguese and the Spanish together. The Greeks are getting all the military assets. You can see what's coming, folks. Like okay, fine. You guys can be Northern Europeans, and you can be locked up against, in the North Sea and then the whole. I don't remember all the names of all the seas up there, but yes, you understand what I'm getting at. Yeah.
But it's interesting because the CIA was also, in a way, behind setting up the European Union, right? I mean, it was some of the forces within the US, at least after the Second World War, were actually pushing for one bloc. And it's interesting to see how then under the leadership of Trump, it's going to be broken down again in several blocs.
Smaller, when you go back that far and you start talking about the CIA, you really have to start talking about the OSS, and that means you have to be talking about MI6. And never in a million, never forget that at that period of time, you would have the British doing what they always do, which is create something, an antipode, create a thing that they can then betray. They're very good at this. That's all they ever do. Like it's their whole shtick, man. Like, and so it's why I think the European Union over time morphed into something different. And now now you can ask yourself, like, why did Brexit happen? Who backed Brexit? Blah, 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 blah. Like there's so much history here. There's so much shadow history here. I don't want to get into it now. We don't need to, but it's just something for people to think about. Right. Yeah. But never forget.
So the conclusion is then that Trump is indeed then playing 4D chess then, I guess.
He's playing not even 4D chess. He's just like, I'm just playing the game. He's just not playing chess. He's playing a different game than chess. I would say he's playing a game like Dune or Imperial or Twilight Imperium or something like that. He's playing a multiplayer area control game. Yeah. He's playing diplomacy. Like the Avalon Hill Classic, he's playing diplomacy. And guess what? Diplomacy is the only game that there's many games that I will never play again, but there's one game that I really like that I will never play again because every time I play diplomacy, I lose friends. Because we stab each other in the back so hard. Everybody's like, dude, you're cold. I don't want to be anywhere near you. Like, how could you do that to me? Like, that's the way diplomacy is played. And that's geopolitics in a box. So you have to realize that there are no friends in geopolitics. The Europeans and the British have tried to say, well, we're supposed to be friends, and we're like, there's no friends in geopolitics. They're only interests, and your interests and ours don't align anymore. And J.D. Vance made that abundantly clear when he went to Munich.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot, Tom, for all your insights. Again, I will put in the show notes where people can find you, but it's, of course, the Gold, Goats and Guns newsletter, tomluongo.me. Mm-hmm. I highly advise people to follow you and to subscribe to your channels and newsletter, because it's always interesting and refreshing and different from what most analysts say. And that's what I like so much about talking to you, Tom. So thanks again for enlightening me and the viewers and giving a different perspective.
I appreciate it, Paul. The opportunity is always appreciated, and it's always great to start a morning with a good clearing. This is a good way to clear my head and get ready for the rest of the day. So, enjoyed it. Enjoy and have a great day, and we'll talk again soon.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Bye.